going on, everybody? Welcome back to Puncher's Chance. Like, we are finally back after a short hiatus. Mr. Stephen Hines was dealing with a sick family, sick children, but now they've got their health. They took their Wheaties, they drank their milk, they feel good. Steve, welcome back, man.
Hey, buddy. Great to be here, and great. We had a few fallouts from this week's card, but I mean, it's still looking pretty stacked. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we did have a few fallouts, but anytime you have Tony Ferguson and Michael Chandler, Charles Oliveira on the same card, like you're pretty well set for this card, right? Like
Yeah,
you've got some
yeah.
interesting fights, and then of course the big main one. This is the most interesting division for me, at least in the UFC. You've got a ton of contenders. You got a ton of guys that, in my opinion, are very neck and neck. And the winner of this fight does not have an easy road ahead because the winner of this fight is taking either Dustin Poirier or Conor McGregor to defend the belt right after this. So either way, this division is going to be, this lightweight division is going to be a tough one for the next few months for whoever the champion is or is going to be. And honestly, depending on who comes out on top in this fight, we could see a champion differ for the next 6-7 months, to be honest. It's that neck and neck. But as we do, so let's start off with, of course, the pay-per-view. We'll work our way from the bottom, of course, to the gold prize, which is the top. First off, we got Shane Burgess and Edson Barbosa. Now, this fight is a fight of submission artists, to say the least, right? So you basically have two guys that are going to do nothing but submit. So you know what happens when these kind of fights come around? No one gets submitted. It goes the distance, and it becomes a jab fest or a kick fest. And I like Shane Burgess in this one. I think Shane Burgess is a little bit better striker. I think he's going to be able to keep his distance better than Edson Barbosa. I think this has potential to be one of the more boring fights. The next one we're actually going to talk about, I think, is going to be the most boring fight of the evening. But it's going to be a tit for tat fight, you know, tag. You're not going to see a lot of action. And if it does go to the ground, it's going to turn into more of a neutral position. I think both of these guys are way too good on the defensive side on the ground to make it interesting. Steve, who you got in this match, and what is your outlook on like this kind of a fight being on a big main card like this?
You know, I mean, I think Edson Barboza is obviously a legend. Shane Burgos is a big name. If this was Edson Barboza of 3-4 years ago when that switch kick was still the fastest thing in the UFC, I would for sure give it to him. I'm with you. I kind of like Burgos on this one as a slight underdog. I think that they're pretty evenly matched, but like I said, I think Edson's definitely on the backside of his career.
Yes.
And so I think that's going to just finally start to catch up with him a little bit more.
Yeah, and see, I mean, we can even we can look at like Cowboy Cerrone. Like you can tell speed and movement, I think, is becoming more important in the UFC, or I guess in mixed martial arts in general, than it ever has. You know, back in the day when you had guys like Chuck Liddell, you know, not the last fight Chuck Liddell had where he got his brains beat in, but like the Chuck Liddells of the day, they could fight late 30s, early 40s and still be very, very good because the game back then wasn't about as quick as possible. It seems like speed, movement, head movement, hip movement is more important in today's game. And I fear for a lot of these older guys, same way with like Cowboy, like what is next for these guys on the tail ends of their career? Do they just want to get 4 or 5 losses, stack them up? You know, that's why I think it's smart for these young fighters to start. And I actually talked about this with Miranda about fighters that are past their prime, needing to step away for not only their health, but for the betterment of the game. Like I said, if this was any other fight, I'm with you. I think Edson Barbosa against maybe an older guy would be a very interesting fight and fun to watch. But I think Shane Burgess is just going to keep him busy the entire time. He's too quick. Yeah, this one's easy for both of us. Moving on to fight number 2, which I think is going to be the most boring fight of the night because I went back and watched highlights of both Caitlin, is it Chukagan, I think? Chukagan, and then Vivian Araujo. So I went back and watched a couple of their fights just to see what I was getting into. Never really heard of either of these fighters in the flyweight division. Boring. Both very, very boring fighters. Although Vivian has had 7 TKOs, most of her fights have gone to the 3rd round, you know, before she hits that TKO. And then Caitlin is just the master artist of taking it the distance. I mean, it seems like every fight she's in goes to the 3rd round, to the 5th round, if it ever gets there. Like she is just a go the distance, tag them up kind of a fighter, which a lot of us, you know, a lot of people don't find exciting. What are your thoughts on this one?
I mean, Caitlin definitely doesn't have that knockout power, and especially at that flyweight division. I mean, and even just in the women's division in general, I mean, there's a handful of girls that you just know are going to put it on people. You know, you have your Nunes, you have Rose, you have Shevchenko, you know, but there's not a whole lot there. I think that I kind of like Caitlyn in this one just because she has had a little bit of that distance fighting, like you said.
Yes.
Like she can keep distance, she can keep her shots. Her jiu-jitsu is greatly improved. Um, you know, she's been in there with Shevchenko. Like she's had the big experiences, and I think when you're getting into a pay-per-view, and let's not forget, this is not just a pay-per-view. This is a pay-per-view with fans.
Yes.
You know, I mean, so she's seen the lights, she's been around. So I kind of like her in this one. I mean, she's definitely a dog in this. I wouldn't be surprised if Vivian put it on her either, though, to be honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the. I'm going Caitlyn as well because I think she's going to try and play it safe, keep her distance, just tag and walk away. That's why these first
Hmm.
two fights are getting a lot of hate, you know, from especially from UFC fans because they have potential to be very boring tag
Yeah.
and circle around fights, which especially with fans coming back, you know, it's going to be. You want exciting fights. You want what happened the last pay per view, which did it have the greatest fighters of all time on it? No, but was one of the best cards I've ever watched. Very
Yeah.
exciting. Every round or every fight just had something spectacular. I mean, there was one fight I think that went the distance. You know, we had some gruesome injuries, which of course we never
Yeah.
want to see. But I have the same feeling here. I think
Yeah.
Caitlin's been in the lights. I think she's just going to tag and move around. But Vivian does have very good knockout power, 7 TKOs. So you know, Caitlyn, if she's not careful, there's always potential for people like that
Hmm.
to sneak in with a knockout. But I'm going to stay
Yeah.
safe here and go Caitlyn. Moving up, Matt Schnell versus Rojo Bontorin.
Buntorn. Hmm.
Bontorin. Yeah, I always overpronounce the letters. All right, now I'm going to go to you here. Both very similar records, 15-5, 16-3. What are your thoughts on this bantamweight fight here?
You know, this is, in my mind, this is a little bit of a pick 'em for me. So I went to Vegas for this one. Rogero's definitely got the advantage as far as all the betting odds goes.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be able to keep a better pace. I think that he's going to have some cleaner striking, and like I say, when the lights come on, I think that he's going to end up the one going on top here. Um, and like you say, this is, listen, guys, they tried to give us Nate Diaz and Leon Edwards, and it fell out. Like, you know, these
Yeah.
first three fights, it
Oh,
kind of is what it is.
yeah.
You know, we'll see that in June, but I mean, these are definitely kind of some fight night moving up things.
Yeah, this is definitely 100%. This is fight night. In the first three fights, I would say are more of a fight night, headliners of fight nights more than they are a golden pay-per-view. They tried to give us Nate Diaz. Oh, what I would have given. I mean, this card had potential to be one of the best all year, which I still think the last two fights, depending how they go, could be very interesting. I'm a big Tony fan. You're a big Tony
Yeah,
fan. All the psychos
yeah,
in the world are big Tony fans, apparently, because like it's just craziness when Tony comes to town. So like that's always fun. I'm with you. I mean, I'm gonna stick with Vegas here. I'm gonna go safe, and Rogero is the safest bet. But it's anybody's game. This is one of those fights where it's just like, I mean, they're both very similar. Rogero's a little bit better gas tank. He's a little bit better on the ground. I don't know that it's really going to go to
hmm
the ground. I think it's going to be just dogfight the entire match. So it's one of those things. I'm
yeah,
going to Vegas for the easy odds. Go Rogero here just to play it safe. Now we get to talk about the fun fights. Tony Ferguson and then Darush are going at it. This, if you looked at the press conference already, like I'm already
hmm
in love with this card. You know,
yeah,
you have Dana White
yeah.
privilege. Like that is one of the most iconic lines. Vintage Tony seems to be back. What are your thoughts on vintage
Yeah.
Tony coming back to the octagon?
So I love everything Tony's doing. I love everything he's saying. He looks good. He looks healthy.
Yes.
Um, the problem is Beneil Dariush, um, A, is a hardcore Christian. You know, so if you ride on that side of the fence, it's hard to bet against him.
Yeah.
But he also, when you look at strength versus strength, like Tony's striking is unconventional, but he'll take hits. Um, Dariush is kind of like, this is his next step fight. Like, can he move into that next level?
Yes.
The one thing you can count on is the Tony Ferguson fight's going to end up on the ground at some point. Tony Ferguson is a black belt, 10th planet under Eddie Bravo. So, I mean, definitely no slouch, but Beneil Dariush is a world-class jiu-jitsu practitioner.
Yes.
So the last thing Tony wants to be is on the ground in a scramble. So Tony's the favorite. I think he's got better hands. I think he has better striking. My only issue is, like we were talking about, those older fighters. Tony's at 37 at this point. He was chasing that ghost of Khabib for years and years.
I think it took a lot out of him.
It definitely took a lot out of him,
Yeah.
you know, and so this right now, I feel like, is all pressure for Tony.
Yes.
You know, this is him saying, you know, you lost to Gaethje, you lost to Charles Oliveira. You know, this is deciding, are you a top 5 guy or are you a top 15 guy?
Yes.
And I tell you what, you don't want to be on the ground with Dariush. But all that to be said, I have been riding Tony's nuts for years now.
Exactly.
And I'm not getting off now. This could be the comeback. I mean, Charles Oliveira is one of the best in the world, and he's proven it, and he got the stage to prove it now. Justin Gaethje is one of the best in the world, and the dismantlings that we've seen these two guys deliver over time makes me think that maybe this wasn't a fluke. You know, Tony really just got outclassed 2 times, you know.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to see how his camp responds, how he responds. But I'm going to go Tony on this one.
I mean, I'm with you. We've been riding Tony's nuts ever since I knew who Tony Ferguson was. When he brings baseballs into press conferences and talks about 3 strikes and you're out, like, this man is so psychotic that I just love him to death. Listen, I'm with you. If Tony has any chance at this fight, Tony's got to keep it up. Tony's got to keep his distance, and he's got to be as unconventional and as unpredicting as possible. He's got to be like, in my opinion, he's got to do what Max Holloway did in his last return fight, which is just, he was so unconventional, so quick, and just picked his opponent apart the entire match. I don't think he can afford to go to the ground at all, because let's face it, like you said, Tony's getting older, and I don't know that he has the gas tank that he used to 4 years ago. You know, I don't think he can afford 3 or 2 rounds on the ground for 3 minutes apiece and then try and stand up and knock him out. So I'm going to go Tony here as well. Although Dariush is, Dariush, like you said, is that next level of contender. Is he going to hop up into that top 5? I like Tony too much just to keep him here. But the real question is, so you have Tony Ferguson. Where does Justin Gaethje fall in line with you? You have Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler. We know the winner of this fight is getting Poirier or Conor. Where do you think Gaethje, because you just mentioned him, I was thinking about it, where does he line up in this whole lightweight mix?
I mean, that's a tough call, where he's going to end up falling. I think he's probably going to sit back for a little bit and see where things kind of play out.
Yeah.
If Dariush beats Tony, I think that's going to be his next matchup.
Yeah.
But, you know, because like you say, you have Poirier and Conor. So, I mean, a Conor fight's always there. Poirier would make sense as well. So, I mean, anyone, really, the winner, if Tony were to win, Gaethje...
You do the rematch, right?
It was so lopsided, I don't know that you do.
This is true.
You know, it's like watching Masvidal versus
Usman?
Nate Diaz.
Or Diaz? Oh, like, Diaz, yeah.
You know, we saw everything we needed to see. Like, it wasn't close. Gaethje Tony was not close at all.
Yeah.
So I think if Dariush wins, he goes that route. If Conor or Poirier wins, they're obviously going to fight for the belt, or so he could just hold out for a little bit.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I will mention one thing, because you did mention it as well. Tony Ferguson does look healthy for the first time, I think, in a while. I was looking at him in the weigh-ins. Like, his body looks good. Like, not trying to sound weird here, guys, but his muscles look good. He looks like he's healthy for once, which is something that if you go back to his last couple fights, he didn't look normal. I don't know if he was fighting nagging injuries. I know he talked about a lot was taken out of him from Khabib not being able to fight him, which is, you know, when you, and especially in the fight game, what people don't understand is when you're fighting an opponent, or when you have your eyes set on a certain opponent, I mean, your heart and soul is dedicated to that one person. You train for the fighter, not the fight. And, you know, so I think it's going to be interesting to see how he responds. And then this takes us to the main event, which we were just talking about. Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. 30-8 for Charles Oliveira. Michael Chandler at 22-5. Michael Chandler had probably one of the most epic debuts in UFC history. I mean, it's
For
up there
sure.
for sure. Comes out with a big knockout in what was it, 30 seconds, 40 seconds, if that?
I think it was 2 minutes. I think there was a little dance time in there, but yeah.
I can't remember too much of the fight. All I remember is that it was a little pick and pop, a little dancing, and then it was just one giant shot, which is something that shocks a lot of people. I know Michael Chandler is the epitome of small guy, big ego, right? He's a smaller dude, but man, he acts like he's 6'6", and he hits like he's 6'6", and he wrestles like he's 6'6". Michael Chandler is just, look at the weigh-ins between him and Oliveira, and I'm not saying that just look at the muscles and that's who's going to win, but he is massive for this fight. He looks like he's more determined than I've ever seen him. But Charles Oliveira is one of the best in the world. And I don't think he gets enough credit, doesn't get enough love. What he was able to do to Tony Ferguson in their last fight was pretty shocking for a lot of people, and almost snapped his arm in half, which just thinking about it makes me want to grit my teeth. But I want your prediction first. What are your thoughts on these two fighters? Is this going to be an epic matchup, or is this going to be a lopsided? Because I know it's torn right now. A lot of people have it as a domination in 2 rounds, and a lot of people have it going the distance.
Well, all right. So we'll start with Charles Oliveira. He is a world-class jiu-jitsu guy.
Yes.
So once he got in there with Tony and it got to the ground, I wasn't shocked at how it went. I was surprised that Tony got caught in the traps that he got caught in, because he got caught in some really kind of, and who am I to talk? But he got caught in like some low level type stuff where it's like, you probably should be able to get out of that,
Yeah.
But my issue with Charles Oliveira is there's been a knock on him that he has been losing matches, been losing fights, losing rounds, and kind of took his foot off the gas pedal and just like, okay, this is not my night. I'll come back tomorrow.
Yes.
That little bit of quit, once it's there, it's there. He's gone on this incredible win streak. His striking has caught up to his ground game a little bit.
Finally,
he has really improved, but that little bit of quit is still there. And that's what scares me about it. Now, you have Michael Chandler, who has made the biggest UFC debut you can have.
Yeah, exactly.
Went out there wearing the American flag, Nashville proud, running around blue collar.
See you at the top.
My dad was a construction worker.
Yeah.
See you at the top.
See you at the top.
The big thing about this, though, is styles make fights, and especially in this 155, styles make fights.
Very much.
So you have a wrestler with great takedown defense who can negate some of the jiu-jitsu with his chain wrestling, who has legitimate knockout power.
Yes.
I got Chandler in this all day,
Yeah.
It really is a great matchup for him. Out of the top 5 guys, it's the best matchup for him.
I think so too. Yeah.
I think Poirier poses some issues.
Especially, I think size and reach with Poirier is probably Chandler's biggest disadvantage, because he has the same kind of techniques as him. Of course, not wrestling wise, but I think size and distance could keep Poirier ahead in that fight card if it ever went there.
Well, and I think Chandler and Poirier are fairly similar.
Yes.
In their styles, they're tough guys. They're going to grind it out. Obviously, Chandler's got the wrestling background. Poirier is more of a jiu-jitsu background, but it's still similar. You have Connor, who is just Connor. If it's a motivated, ready to go Connor, it's tough to beat. Gaethje's wrestling is tough. So I think really this is really the best matchup that he could have.
Yeah.
So I know Dana White's sitting there hoping that Charles Oliveira doesn't Amanda Nunes, Michael Chandler here. I don't know if you remember that when Amanda Nunes went in there and destroyed Ronda Rousey's big comeback turn. So the new
because this is the new prize and toy, right? Michael Chandler's the new guy to push in the media. He's likable, people love him, and this is Dana's guy. Now all of a sudden he's got someone to back up, and that's when Ronda got destroyed. Now Dana's sitting there going, "Oh, I guess I got to figure out this Nunes girl and start pushing her."
Calls up Modelo first thing. But so you got Michael Chandler in here. I think this is a great matchup for him. I think Charles Oliveira is just sitting there like, crap. This is the worst matchup I have.
Yeah, it is.
Like, he's like, give me Dariush. for the title. I could take that all day. But so I think it's going to be a great fight. I think Chandler inside of 3 is going to be able to get that takedown and really get that ground and pound in there. I don't think he is going to have that overhand right like he did on Hooker.
No.
But I think what you're going to get is you're going to get a takedown. You're going to get some ground game. He's going to get not necessarily get his back, get some side control, TKO.
Yeah, so I'm with you. I'm going Michael Chandler here, and that's not just because I've talked to Michael Chandler on more than one occasion, not to brag, guys, but it's cool when you get to pull that card out. Like you said, I think this is the worst matchup for Charles Oliveira. What Charles Oliveira does so well is he's able to take that 1 second, that 0.9 seconds when you're taking a break, deciding what you're going to do, and he's able to jump ahead of what you're thinking. So we've seen him do that so many times of, hey, I'm going to shoot because I know he's doing X, Y, Z. Michael Chandler is not going to give you that 1 second to sit back and think. He's going to press and press and press.
Yeah.
Everybody said the same thing about Dan Hooker with Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler's in big trouble. Dan Hooker's great at countering. Guess what? It's a big problem when he doesn't give you any space to counter. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to get a Michael Chandler who will push and push and push. And I have Chandler in 2 rounds here. I think Chandler's just going to push and push and push. And it's going to get to the point where I think Oliveira, like you said, he does have kind of that give up where when he knows that there's no way he's going to be able to take him down as easily as he can or score as many hits, he sits back. And anybody that sits back in a fight for a second is done for the rest of the match, right? So I think Charles Oliveira is in some big trouble here because Michael Chandler is going to press and press and press, and it's going to be very interesting. I like Michael Chandler in this fight inside 2 rounds. I don't know if it's going to be I don't know. I don't think he's going to land the big overhand, but I don't know if it's going to be a submission because he does have submission possibilities. And I think that's something that Oliveira might not think about. He's a very world-class wrestler, which a lot of people also don't talk about. In takedown defense is very important. This is the same thing we talked about in the not this Usman fight, but the one with Gilbert Burns was Burns is going to try and take him down. Well, guess what? Usman has some of the best takedown defense in the entire UFC, and it negates what that fighter's able to do. And I like Chandler on the feet well over Charles Oliveira. That's going to be a very fun fight. I'm very excited to see Chandler as the champion and go all the way to the top, as he says. But the big problem here, and I'm looking at big picture going forward, let's say Chandler wins this fight. If the Conor that we all think that is coming back, because we're starting to see Conor trash talk again, and we haven't seen this Conor since he last obtained the belt, right? The Khabib fight, I would say. And the Khabib fight, he was the only one to ever take a round off of him. So we're seeing a motivated Conor. If Conor gets it done like I think he will against Poirier, I think that is the worst matchup for Michael Chandler. So if he does obtain the belt, I think it's going to be a long road for Michael Chandler ahead if he does indeed have to face a Conor McGregor, because Conor McGregor is going to be able to piece him apart. And Conor McGregor's dealt with guys that have pushed at. He dealt with the best guy who puts on pressure, and that's Khabib. And I mean, Khabib is the most smothering fighter I've ever seen. And so I think that's going to be a tough road for Chandler in the future. But for right now, I like his chances to obtain the belt.
Yeah, and the one thing you have to remember is Chandler has a few losses in Bellator, notably to Pitbull. And granted, not everybody's Pitbull. Pitbull, I think, could be the champion in any league he goes to, not just Bellator.
I agree. He reminds me of Mighty Mouse before Mighty Mouse took his fall. Like, he was one of those guys that could go anywhere and just win.
Yeah. So the thing is, there is a playbook out there for how to beat Michael Chandler.
Yes.
The problem is you're going to have to beat him in that to the center of the octagon, and you're going to have to be able to keep that pressure off of you. And I just don't know that Charles has got that. Seems like a great guy, but he is not draped in the American flag. I like your comparison to Usman. Usman's the Nigerian nightmare. Chandler's the Nashville nightmare. And
I like it.
Just like, he could run with that. That's free. That's his. And so I'm just excited to really kind of see how he's going to follow up that debut.
I agree. I'm excited. I think Chandler, his mental space right now, his conditioning, I think everything about Chandler right now is just a step above Charles Oliveira for me. So I'm going to go Chandler here. I think the last 2 fights, the Ferguson fight and the Chandler fight, have potential to be 2 of the better fights of the entire year. A lot of fun. And we've got big fights coming up, man. And so there's going to be a ton more Puncher's Chance is coming your way.
Oh,
Steve's
yeah.
back to feeling
Yeah.
healthy. He's been hitting
There
the
you
gym.
go.
If you can't tell in the camera right now, Steve's looking slim, he's looking
Yeah.
thick. With that strength. I'm down 16 pounds. We're getting ready for our debuts in the UFC. All right, guys. So
Exactly. Yeah.
make
I
sure
gotta
you
get down to
use.
light heavyweight.
Yeah, we got to get. Yeah,
that's the
I'm
goal.
trying to get to flight weight. So you got the light heavyweight. Listen, use your FNX products, guys. I'm telling you, I preach on this show. FNX Fitness has everything you need for health, fitness, and it's made in the USA. So Michael Chandler, I mean, you could be a big buyer. It's made here in the USA, all natural, great stuff. But Steve, once again, thank you for coming on, man. Very excited. Send in your picks, man. There's a couple of you that did it on Instagram last time, and it was great to see all the picks that you had in.
Yep, for sure. And let's see who wins, huh?
Yeah.
Me versus you, us versus the fans. Let's see how this turns out, huh?
Yeah, I am ready. Yeah, I mean, we're I think dead even across the entire board.
So far.
So here's what I'm gonna do. I will put out on my Instagram, the Locker Room Podcast 615. I will put Steve and I against the fans. Let's see who comes out on top. There's a bunch of you that keep sending them in, so it's a lot of fun. I will tag Steve and everything, show him some love. We always appreciate him. Once again, guys, I want to thank you for joining us here. The Puncher's Chance at the Locker Room Podcast. Steve, until next time.
We'll see you, bud.